Hi, and welcome to today's episode of PianoTV. So a lot of what I do on this piano channel involves like educational, kind of like structured material, and I haven't done Q&A sessions in a long time, but I get questions from you guys, really good questions too, like all the time, and I have so many questions that if I were to answer them all in a video, then, you know, you'd be waiting months and months and months to have your questions answered. So what I decided to do today was just take some of the questions that I thought could be answered a little bit more quickly and put it all in one video. So I'm gonna go through 4 questions that I've had more than once. These are kind of like repeat questions, so I'm gonna paraphrase them a little bit. They're not gonna be like word for word verbatim. But anyway, if you like this style of video, let me know, and I can do more of these in the future. I find it's a really good way to, get through a ton of questions. That's my phone. And as always, if you have any questions that you think would be like well suited to this kind of format, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Anyway, let's get started. So the first question I want to address is, why don't you play the piano more in your videos? And I have a very simple answer for this. I just do not have time to learn a ton of music. I teach piano as more or less my full-time job, and I do a whole bunch of other things too. So, I mean, I'm kind of swamped as it is learning the songs I have to learn for my piano students at like a barely adequate level, as well as my own projects and my own practicing. So if I were to play some of like all of the songs we talked about on the channel, like in like Clair de Lune when we're talking about Debussy, or some of the other songs we've analyzed, then I'd have to plan in advance by like a month or two just so I could kind of get it down, and it would involve so much planning, and I don't have the mental capacity for it at this point. I also tend to favor doing videos with more of like an educational, informational bent. That's just where my heart is. I really like music history, and that's kind of the thing that I like to focus on more so than just doing like a whole bunch of piano playing tutorials. The next question relates to endurance. How do I build up my endurance for playing fast pieces? And I'm going to paraphrase, but I know what this problem's like, where you sit down, you try to play your piece really fast or whatever it is, and after like a minute your hands are just like, they're tired, they can't go on, they get all like stiff and tense, and you kind of have to stop for a bit. And some songs, if they're like continuously fast for 5 minutes straight, I mean, if your hands get tired after a minute, that's gonna cause some problems. So I wanna talk about a couple ideas I have to sort of conquer that problem. And I think the best approach to take with this is to kind of treat practicing piano a little bit like exercise. What would you do to improve your physical endurance as a runner, for example? So, not that I have much experience with being a runner, I'm not gonna lie, but a lot of it involves consistent, steady, moderate exercise will lead to longer term endurance. So it's not even about just like sitting down and playing the piano really fast for a couple minutes. It's more about practicing for longer stretches of time, like half an hour, 45 minutes of like moderate activity. So not like super fast where you're getting tired, but like enough where, you know, you feel it a little bit. So I would say to build your endurance, make sure you're practicing in long enough stretches, like an hour or two a day, even not all at once, but like in, you know, good half an hour chunks where you're working fairly hard, but not to like your maximum capacity. And then interject that with periods where you're doing like a minute or two of really fast practice. And once your hands are tired from doing fast practice after a minute or two, back off, take like a complete break, not even necessarily just by stopping, but play something slower or easier, or keep working on the fast part, but like make it quite a bit slower and work on another aspect of the technique. And eventually you'll find that by kind of doing this like interval training of practicing piano, you'll eventually have like longer stretches of endurance where you can do like longer bursts of fast playing. But it just kind of takes a sustained effort of moderate exercise and like short bursts of fast playing. And more on playing, we're actually going to move to the piano for this next question, is how do I know that I'm playing with proper hand technique when I'm playing piano? I've had comments regarding like wrist pain while playing and things like that. So let's go over to the piano, just like cover all our bases, make sure you got the right posture going for you. The biggest consideration when it comes to posture is, like, first of all, do you have a piano bench? If you don't, get a piano bench. Chairs are like never at the right height. It's going to cause problems. The next thing, once you have a piano bench, is sitting on the right, kind of in the right spot. So if you're sitting too close, your feet aren't going to touch the ground. It's going to cause your back to hunch, and then your wrists are going to droop. And how your wrists are positioned at the piano is like a super, super important thing to protect your joints. So I always push the piano bench far enough back that I can sit on the end, put my feet on the ground, and then when my arms are resting, they're kind of resting in an even line. My wrist isn't drooping and my wrist isn't too high either. So I do this with my piano students, but if you can like grab your wrist and it's floppy and you can give it a good shake, that's kind of like the looseness that you want in your hands when you play. So you want like flexibility in your wrists, and a lot of times what happens, especially if you're playing a song that's really fast or really difficult, is your wrists get like super stiff, and that's going to cause tension and that's going to cause problems. So when you're playing, keep a looseness in your wrists, and I think that's going to go a long way. And again, make sure, it's really common for people's wrists to drop like super low when they play, kind of like this, or like if the thumbs are hanging off, you get like flat finger syndrome. So just watch that your wrist isn't coming way down here. I find that's way more common than wrists that are like super, super high. And also like where you play on the key matters too. So I always play a little closer to the edge of the key. If you play really deep like this, it's a little harder to press the notes. It's going to make you more stiff in the wrist. So just some ideas for you. And the last question that I've pulled out and written down today is, how do I maintain my memory of songs? So a lot of times what happens to people when they learn a piano song is they learn it and it's awesome, and then you're like, yay, I'm awesome, and then you put the song away and you don't play it again, and then like months later you return to it and it's a mess and you can't do it anymore. So you end up with like not a lot of songs that you could just like start playing at the drop of a hat. So if your friend comes over and is like, show me your piano music, maybe you could only play like 1 or 2 songs that you're currently working on, but you won't be able to, draw from a rich repertoire of pre-learned songs. So in order to kind of retain your memory of these pieces that you spend so much work learning, what I always try to encourage my students to do is keep a list of songs that you put in maintenance mode. So what this means is you have a list of songs that you really like that you want to remember how to play. Once you can play them very well, maybe you can play them from memory, you don't have to really work on them anymore, they can go into maintenance mode. And this means you really are only going to have to play them once or twice a week in order to keep them in your memory. But if you don't, think about putting any songs in maintenance mode, then you might not remember to play them, and then that's how they get forgotten. So I think having a maintenance mode list where you have, say, like 10 songs or something like that you return to, and maybe every day when you practice, you can go through 2 of those songs. Then you get through all of them at least once a week, and that's keeping them in your mind and in your memory so that you can play more than a couple songs on any given day. Thank you so much for joining me in this Q&A video. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, leave me any questions if you have any comments, any suggestions for improvement, things like that. I always like reading your comments and hearing what you guys have to say. I will catch you guys next time. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video. I'm cooking. Let's carry on.